Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. We got a good one coming your way today on GoJo and Golic. We will get into the Steelers-Commanders game last night, which went down to the wire, plus college football. 2 top 10 teams lost on Saturday. We will break down the whole picture. And Marshall Newhouse of Pregame Power Up going to join us to break down Monday Night Football. All that and more coming your way on today's episode of GoJo and Golic.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield here. We're presented by Campbell's Chunky, the soup that eats like a meal, and we got a great one for you today. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, and review us. Leave us a 5-star rating, and check us out live Monday through Friday from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network and our YouTube channel. The brand new GoJo and Golic YouTube channel made its debut last Friday. Make sure you head on over to that, subscribe, hit the little bell, make sure you're up to date, and so you know when we're going live here each and every morning from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. All the videos, everything else will live there as well going forward. Fun one, as Jesse mentioned, Marshall in the second hour will kind of be our good look ahead at Monday Night Football and the rest of the week. But, Dad, you last night on the call for Sunday Night Football with Westwood One got the crown jewel of the weekend. One of the craziest performances that we've seen in quite some time as Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions overcome a 5-interception outing to come back and beat the Houston Texans on the road and keep their season afloat. I know all of the rest of us flabbergasted watching them come out of the halftime locker room, Dan Campbell say all the right things, but to actually watch them chip away and get back to that game, what was it like inside the building there for these stunned Houston fans?
I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, Houston built up a 23-7 halftime lead, and Detroit making all kinds of mistakes. Houston's defense without Will Anderson playing well. You were thinking, wow, you're thinking it's a long season. Every team has a screw up. Every team has a bad game. Chalk this one up to be in Detroit's bad game. But they outscore Houston 19-0 in the second half. A complete tale of two halves. Aaron Glenn loves to play, the D coordinator for Detroit, loves to play man. They were locking down the receivers in the second half. It was amazing. The first 6 possessions of the game for Houston in the first half were touchdown, field goal, punt, touchdown. The second half was interception, punt, punt, missed field goal. I mean, it was incredible. And both quarterbacks who, I mean, Jared Goff had been on an unbelievable tear since I think week 3 had been completing, or last 5 or 6 games, completing 84% of his passes, leading in rating, leading in completion percentage overall. It had been ridiculous. And he ends up 15 of 30. CJ Stroud of 19 of 33. There were 29 incompletions between the two quarterbacks and 7 interceptions. 7 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 29 incompletions. It was the complete tale of two halves in this one. And all that said, I mean, Houston had the lead and had a chance to get their only points. Fairbairn had a chance to kick a field goal and missed a long-distance field goal. And Jake Bates hits 2 field goals. He had 3 over 60 yards in the UFL, but he hadn't made one. He had made one that was 51 yards, and he beat that twice, a 58-yarder and a 52-yarder, to win the game. That barely just got inside. I mean, barely. The 58-yarder barely made it over the crossbar, but I think may have brushed the upright, and then the 52-yarder brushed the other upright. Normally you see kicks, you see the ball do something, right? Fade or hook a little bit. There's some movement. There was no movement on this ball. It was dead ass straight. And I kept thinking, watching it, it's going to hit the upright. It's going to hit the upright. And it just grazed inside.
I laughed so hard now because between Jake Bates and then what you've seen from Brandon Aubrey, the UFL to NFL kicking pipeline is robust and incredibly productive. But we also get to continue to hear the story about Jake Bates, the brick salesman turned NFL kicker, and really in this case turned hero of the Detroit Lions. But Dad, it was no doubt a tale of two halves in this game. And I remember, it being talked about plenty in the beginning of this game, but with all the problems that it had, because you're going to see 5 interceptions for Jared Goff, but recognize not all of these are created equally. The first one off a tipped ball thrown out into the flat. The second one off a tipped on a sack by or what would have been a sack by Danico Autry getting by the quarterback. The third one before the end of the half, just basically chucking up down a Hail Mary. The second half is when you saw a couple of what looked like either bad timing or bad communication between quarterback and receiver on those routes. But aside from just not giving the ball away, Dad, or maybe that's all of it, in your mind, what was the biggest turning point for the Detroit Lions and why they were able to get back into this game?
Well, their defense shut down Houston's offense. The defense and now Houston's offense never got off the ground running the ball, but I give them credit. I mean, they tried. Joe Mixon carried 25 times for just 46 yards. They kept thinking he would break one. He had his long run was 8 yards. They kept thinking he would break one, but they kept the threat of the run alive to try and use play action pass. But, Aaron Glenn's known for his man coverage. They play the most man coverage in the league. Their blitz rate has actually increased by 5% with Aiden Hutchinson out, but that's because their pressure rate is higher, even though Aiden Hutchinson's off the field, but that's because their blitz rate went up. They're blitzing a little bit more. But really their man coverage, they just absolutely shut down the receivers in the second half for Houston. So it was, you kind of, and even for Houston in the first half, they had 3 field goals. 2 of them, they were in the red zone. They were on the 11-yard line and the 16-yard line. And I even think the fans and the Texans knew we needed to turn at least one of those into a touchdown, because this Detroit team, you're just waiting for them to kind of score points. They lead the league in scoring points with over 32 a game. Now, they didn't reach that just with 26, but they had the ability to score points. And when you're in the red zone and you can't put it in the end zone, that can come back to haunt you. Now, I didn't see Houston getting shut out in the second half, but you really have to credit the Detroit defense for just coming out and absolutely stomping out the offense.
Yeah, no, that Detroit defense, you mentioned the pressure there. CJ Stroud under pressure on 42% of his dropbacks last night. And just to give you an idea, the Los Angeles Rams defense leads the NFL in quarterback pressure percentage with 42.8%. So that's incredibly high-level stuff from them. And you're right, Dad, doing it without the best player on their defense, as Aaron Glenn has done for the last number of games now. And they're still waiting to, get that influx of talent that they've gone after at the deadline. And so for this Detroit team, Dad, it just seems like Dan Campbell and company had to up the degree of difficulty a little bit to feel alive in this game and try and mount this historic comeback, because for a while things have been too easy. And we know on the other side of the football, Dan Skinner had moved around out to tackle and was getting his first start there. We've seen Detroit a little bit vulnerable when injuries popped up along the offensive line. That's usually the through line for a team where that group is the star of the show. But you had Jamison Williams back on offense off the suspension, who had a couple of big catches. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown coming up with some in the second half. Jahmyr Gibbs had a big second half for them. So it was the usual cast of characters, but I do think overall, on one side, it continues to be Houston allows C.J. Stroud to get pressured at an unholy rate, and this Detroit Lions team, despite all of the issues with the turnovers, didn't allow Jared Goff to get sacked this entire game against a really good pass rush, and certainly Jonathan Greenard on the other side, Danielle Hunter on the other side, who is incredible for Houston even without his running mate there.
Yeah, Houston came into the game with 29 sacks, fourth in the league. Now, Detroit was pretty good. They only allowed, I believe it was 19 coming into the game. But as you said, Houston got no sacks. And Detroit got 4 in this game, hit the quarterback 7 times. And this O-line for Detroit, you're right. It was talking about it was going to be shaky with Dan Skipper in there against Danielle Hunter. But on the other side, Penei Sewell, dude, just gets out in front on screens, kicks out on running plays. He is one of the best athletic linemen I have seen in a long time. Really, he should get a lot of credit for leading a lot of the charge that was going down the right side. But yeah, this Houston defense, no Will Anderson was out there. He's 6th in the league in pressures. Danielle Hunter was 1st in the league in pressures, but no sacks for them. That's 5 quarterback hits. Detroit's rush, like I said, Detroit's pressure rate has been better without Aiden Hutchinson in there. Doesn't mean they're a better team, obviously, without Aiden Hutchinson, but Aaron Glenn times his blitzes a little better, and they play great man. They have the 2 best safeties in Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph as far as a coverage rating against them. They're 1 and 2 in the league. They're incredible when they play man. They really are.
Yep, so they find a way to get it done, do the Detroit Lions, who, in most people's estimation, were the best team in the NFL coming into this game. Certainly didn't look it in the first half of this one, but over the course of long seasons, and especially seasons that culminate in a Super Bowl, you've got moments like this where you've got to press through. And, Dad, this is a big culture win. We know Dan Campbell and the Lions, all the belief that we've talked about from a team that when he first took over lost all kinds of games like this that got excruciatingly close at the end. Finding a way now to have everybody believe and pulling the rope in the same way to get out on the other side is the hallmark of the Dan Campbell era of the Detroit Lions. And then on the other side for the Texans, Dad, who are in year 2 with D'Amico Ryans, trying to figure out how to get this done. The second half certainly has been an issue. They've been outscored by 59 points after halftime this year, which is 31st in the league, that differential. And, you look at C.J. Stroud, 68 yards, completing 39% of his passes in the second half of this game. I know getting Nico Collins back should help a lot, Dad, to have his number 1 receiver in an offense that's lost those guys and been without them at different points this year. The Stephon Diggs injury, they reshuffled the offensive line again last night with Jarrett Patterson coming back after a concussion going to center. They moved Juice Scruggs to left guard. So they're trying to mix the bag up there, but there just don't seem to be a lot of answers for what's ailed them, which is really having health hit them in the worst spots at the worst time.
But maybe they'll get healthy in the right time. Get Will Anderson back from his ankle. Nico Collins, a lot of people thought he was going to be active for this game. Now, they're not going to get, obviously, Diggs back, but getting Nico Collins will be huge. Getting Will Anderson will be big. They have the division basically under wraps. They're 6-4. The Colts are 4-6, and they've already beaten the Colts twice. So they're good as far as the division, but they want to go further than in the division, obviously. With the year they had last year, you want to go further than that and make a little bit of a run. I think it's one of those things, if you get healthy at the right time, they know they have a good team. They had a team meeting, a team-only meeting last week, and it was weird. Rarely do you hear a 6-3 team have a team meeting, but they had lost 2 of their last 3, looked awful 10 days earlier against the Jets, and it was Joe Mixon, his first year with the Texans. When Bobby Slowick was getting ready to start an offensive meeting, Joe Mixon said, "Could I have the floor?" and proceeded to call out everybody, including himself. But it is rare that a 6-3 team needs a team meeting. But I think they'll be okay. I think they'll heal up at the right time. And for Detroit, I mean, listen, great teams pull off great big wins, right? I mean, we're going to talk about the Chiefs. They did it again. I mean, that's just what great teams do. And a little bit of history going back to really before my era, the last team down 15 through 5 interceptions to win, 1970, Johnny Unitas. So that's going back a ways. And you want to go back even further, the Lions are 8-1. It's their first 8-1 start or better since 1954. And that 54 team went 9-2-1, lost in the NFL championship game to Cleveland. So Detroit made some history, both good, obviously, but one off a bad outing of 5 interceptions and being down at least 15. They were down 16 at half.
Sure. No, it is history for sure, and all's well that ends well in Detroit as they get the 26-23 win. And you're right, Dad, about the Texans, too. This is a team that can turn it around, but as with most things, everything is bigger in Texas. And, Jesse, the problem's much bigger in Dallas than they are in Houston at this point as we get to what'll officially now be Sungate going on for Dallas at this point in the season.
Yeah, so we're not getting 4 straight wins from Cooper Rush last time we saw him in extended action. It's not going that way. We're having a lot of issues in Dallas, and, you know, they're winless at home, and it's because of the sun, right? Isn't that what it is? CeeDee Lamb was not happy. He wants some curtains, and Jerry Jones was not feeling it. He said, like, yeah, let's just tear down the stadium and build a new one. How about that? Ridiculous. So things just are going from bad to worse, you guys. It feels like we're watching this organization fall apart right before our eyes.
Yeah, the Cowboys got annihilated, predictably, by the Philadelphia Eagles that do the thing the Cowboys don't defend well, which is run the football. They win 34-6 in this game on the road. And to Jesse's point, Dad, the moment that everyone's going to talk about, Cooper Rush throwing a ball to CeeDee Lamb, where you could see CeeDee Lamb pointing at a certain point during the afternoon games in Dallas. The sun comes directly through the end zone of the Cowboys Stadium in a way that does not happen for other events. They put curtains up for those other events to try and block that out. But in Jerry's, crown jewel that he built here in Frisco, they went out, or near Frisco, they went out and put this in. So now at this point in the game, their own players complaining about the sun being in his eyes in a moment that, hey, we can call any moment pivotal for the Cowboys this season because it's all going bad. But this gets raised to his desk now at a point in the season where everything else has gone wrong, Dad, is to me much more indicative of just how bad the Cowboys are down than this being some sort of new problem that's actually going to get addressed. Because to Jerry's point, it's been this way for a long time. We've heard the complaints, and the Cowboys have still won 12 games a year for the last 3 years, with the sun being the same place it's been for millions of years.
Yeah, Jerry's quote, by the way, we know where the sun is going to be when we flip the coin, so we know where the damn sun is going to be in our own stadium. Let's just tear down the damn stadium and build another one. Are you kidding me? So listen, I agree. They've played with it, and it happens after the time change in the late games. So you know when it's going to happen. Now, could they put a curtain up? Yes, they could. Did this have anything to do with the getting their asses whooped? No, it had nothing to. That's frustration on CeeDee Lamb's part. This could be handled. They could put up a curtain, but and I don't think CeeDee Lamb was trying to make an excuse. You just said the sun was in my eyes, and like you said, they put up curtains for other venues, for other things that go on in the stadium. So these are really two separate things. One, you could do it, yeah, but as Jerry said, both teams are playing with it. You know when it's going to be there. You know what time of year it's going to be there. Basically deal with it. Let me just say, there's a lot more issues going on with the Cowboys that, again, we knew about coming into the season. Now, you didn't expect to lose your high-priced quarterback for the season, but this was a team that a lot of people said was going to take a step back, and they lived up to that. They lived up to taking a step back. And so a lot of frustration talking, no doubt.
Yeah, no, this is, and again, could you say, and overall, this is kind of the reminder, this is a lot like the tour conversation that we had around Dallas, Dad, where it's not directly contributing to winning, but it's also a reminder of, hey, this could have all been done with the actual football a lot more in mind than it was. If you're going to build this big, beautiful new stadium where they take everything into account, maybe don't do it where you're going to have the sun screaming through in a way that's brighter and more prohibitive than most places. Just like, hey, maybe give the players a little bit more space on the interim. It's all one of those where they're not the root of the cause of the problem by any stretch of the imagination, but they are symptoms of that root, and they pop up far too often for this year's Dallas Cowboys, who, again, we saw Trey Lance in this game, and it's probably not going to get talked about very much at all because that's how down the Cowboys are at this point, where not even that can get us going and get us excited. So if that's not going to get us excited, then coming up next, while Jerry Jones sound is great on a Monday, we've got plenty of even better things to look forward to, like a tale of two rookie quarterbacks and how it shows the importance of the environment. Next here on GoJo Golic.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. We had a good one in D.C., fellas. All right, Steelers, Commanders, two teams at the top of their divisions heading into the game, and it lived up to the hype for sure. A lot going on in the final 2 minutes as the Steelers took the lead, a controversial spot on the Commanders' fourth down play. Then, after what looked like a 3-and-out for Washington, Russell Wilson gets the D-line to jump off sides on a 4th and 1 to seal the deal. I wouldn't quite say it's like the NBA where you only have to watch the last 2 minutes of a game, but geez, a lot going on here. Where do you begin with this one?
I think you begin at the end there, Jesse, and that in particular, the winning by drawing a player offsides, seems like something that's going to make Mike Tomlin happier than any other way that you could have finished that off, Dad. A man who is so dedicated to the details overall, and who I think is relished in this season in particular at the way they've managed to go about their business, going back to the decision to switch to Russell Wilson that has now aged like fine wine for them so far. He just seems to be pressing all the right buttons right now. And so to see them get to do that and take advantage of the discipline of his team versus the other team has to bring him a unique amount of joy.
I'm not going to lie, that one hurt as a former interior D lineman watching the rookie from Illinois, Johnny Newton, jump on a 4th and 1, and that was the game. Pittsburgh got to kneel down and run the clock out. I actually did that my last year in Miami. It was Monday Night Football. I believe it was against Washington. Now, didn't cost us the game like this, but it cost us the first down. They hard counted us, and I was right over the ball playing like a one technique, right over the ball, and I jumped. And I mean, it's inexcusable, especially because it gets talked about, but you get caught up in the cadence, the hard count, and for Washington, they had to be talking about it. Didn't think Pittsburgh was going to – I mean, maybe they weren't sure if Pittsburgh was going to run a play or not. Obviously, Johnny Newton thought they were going to run a play and was trying to get penetration, but that is a tough way to go. You didn't think anything would be tougher than the 4th and 9 that Washington had, and Zach Ertz catches the ball basically right at the first down marker, but just a little bit before. They spot the ball, they review it, and the call stands. That was on the drive before. That was after Russell Wilson throws the beautiful drop the ball in the bucket to Mike Williams to put them ahead. Washington goes down and has a nice drive, but it's 4th and 9 on the 50-yard line, and Ertz just catches it. It almost looked like he caught the ball at the line, came before the line, and then his knee was down and he got touched by a defender. It was close, but a couple of close plays in this game, Mike. I mean, look at who knows what would happen on the fake punt Pittsburgh had. Wide open receiver drops it on a fake punt. Jaylen Warren fumbles a ball going into the end zone or going on the 1-yard line. So a lot of pretty glaring mistakes in this game.
Yeah, I think this game was equal parts glaring mistakes. It was, quarterback play that wasn't great. Both of these guys completing about 50% of their passes. For Jaden Daniels in this game, his average time to throw was 2.54 seconds, which was the 3rd quickest for him this season. So getting the ball out faster going up against TJ Watt and that Pittsburgh Steelers defense that also kind of had their run-pass ratio out of whack. We talked about ad nauseum on the show, Dad, that the Commanders really this year, the renaissance for Cliff Kingsbury and the pairing with Jaden Daniels has been predicated on them going out and doing a really good job running the ball. Jaden Daniels only contributing 5 yards on the ground as a rusher in this game as well. So things got out of whack with the Steelers and what they presented, especially rush defense-wise on the other side of the ball. And because of that, you had that on one side. And on the other side, Dad, Russell Wilson continues to pay off in the areas that Pittsburgh wanted him to pay off. Since becoming the starter in Week 7, Russell Wilson is 3rd among quarterbacks in completion percentage over expectations and expected points added on passes over 10 air yards. So they're pushing the ball down the field. George Pickens, another highlight reel catch for him in the end zone. Mike Williams, you mentioned, getting in on the action as well. And so Russell Wilson has had the exact effect they want, and it helped contribute to the win here.
I mean, George Pickens his game has so increased with Russell Wilson at quarterback. Yeah. I mean, he was a really good receiver, but he's gone to another level now. Listen, Russ, as you mentioned, both quarterbacks were exactly 50%. Russ was 14-28 and Daniels was 17-34. So it wasn't this offensive firepower that went on. But Russ, one of the best things that he's done, the best in the league he had been for years, was a deep ball thrower, because he gets so much height on the ball kind of drops in the bucket instead of being a little lower and trying to go over the defender. And that's what it did on the 32-yard touchdown to Mike Williams. Mike Williams' only target and only catch after getting traded to Pittsburgh. Russ dropped it in the bucket after rolling left. I mean, it's what he does best. Has he lit the world on fire with his passing? No. but timely completions, deep balls, especially to George Pickens, where you get an interference, you get Pickens making a catch in a 50-50 ball, which has been like a 60-40 ball for Pickens. But Russ has brought in enough of the downfield passing to kind of help the running attack. They ran for 140 yards, only 3.3 average, but again, 43 attempts. I mean, they're even though Russell Wilson's a better passer than Justin Fields, it is still not a passing team. It is a running team that plays tough defense that occasionally will rely on the pass and downfield passing, which Russ brings them.
Yeah, they're a running team that knows what they've got to do, and they get their first crack at trying to pass this test coming up next weekend, Dad. They get the game against the Baltimore Ravens that I really think this whole move was predicated on. If you are Mike Tomlin assessing the beginning of this season after Justin Fields had gone 4-2 as the starter for this team in Russ's absence. So we're going to see, hey, can they go out there against, the Baltimore Ravens, one of the best rush defenses, if not statistically the best in the NFL, but where everyone can pass on them. And so if you're Russell Wilson, this is going to be the game where you've got to go out and earn your keep on that side. The other big takeaway with this game, Dad, in my mind was, hey, Jaden Daniels didn't have the best one this game, but it's because now the standard has become so otherworldly for him based on what's gone on for the Washington Commanders this season. This is a great game between two teams, quite honestly. Everyone enjoyed watching the Commanders and Steelers play in the regular season, which is not something we've been able to say for a while, especially on the Commanders side. And it kind of underscores what we've got going on right now on the other side, the tale of two rookie quarterbacks with Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, Jesse, and how bad this has gotten. And we saw the last winnable game that we saw for about the next month on the Bears schedule evaporate into smoke as they got vaporized by the Patriots in a move that's now going to have them asking a lot of the existential questions that we all asked this offseason about this coaching situation.
Yeah, so in this game, despite good field position early, no touchdowns on the day, 23 straight offensive drives without a touchdown for the Bears. That is bad. It is the longest streak in the NFL. I mean, like you said, this is just a rough look for Chicago here. They were favored to beat the Pats by 6. So it's kind of like, where do you go from here?
Yeah, Dad, I think you're going to end up going with a new coaching staff. We talked about this last week, and now Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, had gotten the vote of confidence from Matt Eberflus. And coming off this game, he said everything's on the table in terms of evaluating our operation and what goes into this team. But, Dad, overall, I mean, this game was really underscored by the problem we all said I think I miscalculated the most going into the season, which is the offensive line. And you had 4 starters down on the offensive line going into this game, where Caleb Williams ends up getting sacked 9 times. It was just a non-compete really from the jump with that. But now you look at what they've got coming up, all these division games against Green Bay, Minnesota, and culminating with the Lions on Thanksgiving. And it seems like the gamble that the Bears made on this staff is going to fail pretty miserably and now put them in the position where they're getting ready to reshuffle the deck around a rookie top overall quarterback pick for them again and try and see if they can avoid repeating the history they made with Justin Fields.
Yeah, Caleb Williams has been sacked 38 times. That's the second most for a rookie after 9 games. Just David Carr from the Texans. He was sacked 48 times in the year. He just got battered around. So that's going to be a tough record to break. Listen, it's a combination. The offensive line is not good. Caleb Williams holds on to the ball too long. I mean, it's just a bad combo. And when Caleb Williams early in the season would make some incredible escaping plays, everybody thought, oh, this is going to be the pick for us. But you can't live on those plays. Those have to be ancillary plays. Those have to be bonuses. You have to be able to throw from the pocket. And between him holding on to the ball too long and that O-line being so porous, it's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter the supposed talent that you have around him on the outside in the receivers and the running back. It's a mess right now. I mean, listen, Jaden Daniels has been the poised best rookie quarterback of the 3 that started the season. I know there's more obviously playing now, but the 3 that started the season of him, Caleb Williams, and Bo Nix. Jaden has been the most poised and most consistent. Caleb was the most flashy, but he has regressed, and Bo Nix has certainly improved. He has shown improvement through his rookie year. Caleb Williams is going the other way. Again, not all on him, but we all overestimated the talent. We kept saying, oh, Justin Fields is in Pittsburgh, saying, where was that talent when I was there, that they put around Caleb Williams. But the most important part of it is the lines of scrimmage. And the offensive line for Chicago is just not getting it done. You put that together again with a rookie who tries to make plays with his legs and just can't escape as much as he escaped with in college. It's a different ball game, and it leads to this.
This was the ultimate fear, though, that I had, and this was something I'm glad that we talked about during the offseason, is this was the fear when you were flirting with getting rid of Matt Eberflus and the staff at the end of that last season, and you decided not to. Having a coach limping in to a season where you're handing them the rookie number 1 overall pick puts you on this tightrope walk where it's got to go really well. And we talked about how well would this have to go for the Chicago Bears to retain this coaching staff and keep the continuity with their young quarterback. And the answer is a lot better than this, clearly. Like, there were people that obviously thought they were going to be a playoff team, which you and I were never really buying all the way, thought that they might be certainly better than this, but not a playoff team, especially in this division right off the bat. But now, Dad, this does realize your worst fear, because now you've got to nail whoever comes in here next. And I don't mean to heap dirt on this staff too early, but man, the writing seems to be on the wall right now. And so if you're Chicago, you've really got to go out and find, it's going to have to be an offensive-minded head coach. It's going to have to be a guy who's one of those hot play callers around the league that could come in and put the defibrillators on Caleb Williams, who's still immensely talented. And I do believe you've seen enough from him to where if you go and do this right, they can still get the most out of him. But it's also that bat signal to everybody else, and a good reminder with more recent history. Have your offensive line buttoned up if you're going to be one of these teams picking at or near the top. Do whatever you've got to do investing in that area, because we've seen the teams that have had success in the last couple of years. If we just siphon it off to that with their young quarterbacks, it's been Houston and it's been Washington having offensive lines that have come together and performed well in front of these guys.
Yeah, obviously Caleb Williams is going to get the time he needs. I'm not as sold on him as you may be coming in from college. I think there was maybe a little more flash than substance. Now, we'll see. Well, obviously, I'm not going to completely judge the guy on his rookie year for sure, even though we've seen like a C.J. Stroud last year, Jaden Williams for the most part this year being able to succeed as rookies. But I'm with you. We never want to heap dirt on anybody to lose their job, but we know it's a fact of sports. It's a fact of life. And they're going to have to clean sweep it. And it's always tough on a rookie quarterback to start 2 years, 2 systems, something Justin Fields went through, with different coordinators, couple years, couple different coordinators, new head coach, new way of doing business. It's just and so many Bears fans, and I think Bears themselves thought, okay, we're going to start to dig ourselves out of this now. We have the foundation, to build with a strong defense and a really good first pick quarterback. And it's just absolutely crumbling around them.
Yeah, it's that familiar dread that here we go again of seeing this endless cycle of finding great talented players and destroying them. This is more great quarterbacks are destroyed than created when it comes to this league. More guys are going to rely on the environment around them to just be able to bootstrap their way out of whatever hell they walk into with an organization. It's not saying Caleb Williams walked into a dire situation here in Chicago, but it's just another reminder. All these guys are immensely talented, but not all of them walk into situations that are going to maximize that. Coming up next, let's get some great sound from over the weekends, including the Chiefs doing the thing again. Next.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. here with you. A lot of great sound from this weekend, so let's get right to another Mic'd Up Monday. The Chiefs are still undefeated. That's right. The Broncos had it at the end, but the Chiefs block the field goal to keep the streak alive. Here's Andy Reid in the locker room after the win.
I'm getting way too old for you. But listen, great job of sticking with it. Leo, George, whoever it was. Leo. All right, Superman. Nice. Hey, listen, how about those Chiefs? All right. All right, so we're back on normal schedule. We start up get your treatments, all that stuff. We're rolling. Got a good Buffalo team. We'll get to. Yep. I'm proud of you guys for just hanging with it. And Leo, I'll treat you to a cheeseburger.
So that's part of the treatment, right? Cheeseburger treatment.
Yes, cheeseburger treatment is a vital part of what the Chiefs dynasty has been built on here. I saw a while back, I think it was Jonathan Gannon in Arizona kind of poking fun at some reporter for eating candy or something he wouldn't put in his bottle. Jonathan Gannon, one of those young jack guys. And I pointed out that the now 3-time Super Bowl champion Andy Reid has a diet almost solely made up of cheeseburgers and plenty of great Halloween candy. So the man keeps getting it done, as does his team dad. And it looked like it was finally going to happen. And I don't think any of us are under the guise that this Chiefs team is somehow mimicking the 07 Patriots, who were the last team to really push for an undefeated season in terms of being so dominant that we expect this. They're going to slip up at some point playing in the margins like this, but this is just another reminder, it coming on a blocked field goal by Leo Chenal on that final play where the Chiefs had taken the go-ahead on a field goal by their own kicker and Harrison Butker, and then the Broncos drive down and get within pretty easy range where we all think that this is a done deal, that the Chiefs just find a way in all aspects and in all elements of the game to go and secure victory.
Well, I mean, listen, Denver did it last year. They forced 5 turnovers of KC in one of their games, beat them 21-9, so I don't think this shocked many inside of Denver because Denver's, listen, 16-14. We talked about this Denver defense keeping a lot of teams down, but keeping this Kansas City Chief team down to 16 points, giving the offense a chance. Again, the offense led by a rookie quarterback who, by the way, is playing pretty well. That final drive, he converted 3 third downs to get him in chip shot field goal position. He's got 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions on the year, completing 64% of his passes, went 22 of 30 with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions in this game. Bo Nix is definitely showing progression, which is going to be really good for this team because they have a really, really good defense. But the Chiefs, and you're right, they're not going to go undefeated, a la the Miami Hurricanes in college. Now, not the same, obviously. Miami's defense is bad. Kansas City's defense is not bad. But just how they've been living on the edge. Miami has been living on the edge, and it finally caught up with them against Georgia Tech. Kansas City is just living on the edge. Nobody's mentioning the 07 Patriots or the 72 Dolphins like Kansas City's going to run the table because they're just like we said, living on the edge right now. So, but they're getting it done. The bottom line is they're pulling out the wins, and who would have thought on a chip shot field goal, as Andy said, and as all teams work on it, you work on a block, you pick. He said we saw something in their field goal unit where we thought was a weakness, and we tried to exploit it. He said, but everybody does that. I mean, that's what coaches do. You try to exploit the weakness of another team, and they said they saw something, and they certainly made great penetration, and Chanel blocks it, so it worked.
I guess this is the thing with the Chiefs and why I say that, yes, because you're right, different than the Miami Hurricanes, right, where in college they're lifted up by a quarterback who's playing Heisman-level football and the rest of the team doesn't really play to that level. With the Chiefs, everyone plays to a really high level. Nothing is great. Nothing is best in the league at this point in terms of how they operate, but they're so poised in these key situations. Leo Chenal is a guy that's blocked a field goal in a Super Bowl. Like, this guy's done it on the biggest stage, and so when they get into these moments, they don't panic, and they actually believe they can execute because they've got reps of doing it in high leverage situations. So for the Chiefs, though, it's the same story about how to beat this team. It's the edges of the offensive line. And in this one, you get Wanya Morris that goes down with injury. Kingsley Suamataia, the rookie out of BYU, continues to have struggles this season. And it's why Patrick Mahomes was pressured on just over 40% of his dropbacks yesterday, which is the most since he faced the Broncos last season in like week 8. So it's the book on the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, because they are so poised and experienced, they've found ways to overcome in all of those situations. So they keep it rolling in Kansas City, which is no surprise to anybody. But the new regime in New Orleans for the Saints, Jesse, getting it done in a big way yesterday for the Rizzler is a big one.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there, though. Let me just start with this, right? You flush the toilet and it just doesn't go down. That's probably not what you thought I was going to say as we transition to this next piece of sound. But interim head coach Darren Rizzy, that's how he started his day when he got his first NFL win. Take a listen.
No, man, I'm a pretty open guy, so this is how my day started. I get down here to the stadium, I get down here to Superdome, I go in the head coach's locker room, which, I've never used before, right? So here I am early in the morning, I go to the bathroom, and this is how my day started. I clogged the toilet. And I'm like, this is going to be a crappy day, pun intended. And so I'm like, okay, this is not really a great start to the day. Here we go. And so, I'm not really feeling like a head coach of an NFL team right now. So,
I mean, you know what? It didn't turn out to be a crappy day for him.
Peak special teams coach right there, Dad, just with the overwhelming honesty in front of the microphone, and a guy that seems beloved by the team. Darren Rizzy, you saw and heard so much from the players on that team when he took over after the firings that went on there, and they get the new head coach bump that we see a lot of teams get. I think this is equal parts the Falcons being a team that are always going to be difficult to trust when you think that they're supposed to be at the helm of a division that looks very winnable for them right now. But, Dad, where's the worst place you've ever clogged the toilet? Because going into your new bathroom as the head coach of a football team and clogging that one first rattle out of the box is a tough look.
Well, I mean, the good side is you're the only one supposedly that uses that toilet. So there's a plus side to that. Let me tell you what. You clog a toilet on a plane, that's a walk of shame. That's a walk of shame.
Yeah, can you do that?
Well, I don't think you can do that.
Just asking. I mean, listen, anything's possible. If all of a sudden the flusher doesn't work, I don't know. But, I mean, could you imagine walking out and knowing that didn't flush and the next person that goes in, everybody knew you walked out? I mean, that's a tough call. I don't know if they can clog, but
they can.
Toilet.
Airline toilets can get clogged, and it can cause flight delays.
Yeah, and it can cause embarrassment.
I was going to say, usually the airline toilet flush is like, it feels like, at least when you hear that suction sound, it's like they opened the bottom of the plane the way all the air starts to escape. So I figured that suction was powerful. As a general rule, and this is going to be surprising given what you guys know about me, I only poop on airplanes if it's dire, like if I'm getting sick or if it feels really bad, just because I don't want to your guys' point, stink up the area around the toilet. I've had to, like a lot of other people, sit in those seats in and around the toilet area, and I know how uncomfortable that can make the flight, so I do like to be conscientious when I have the opportunity, though sometimes nature calls and you really have no choice.
I understand if you're like going to poop your pants, that you need to poop on an airplane, but to me, that is the only scenario in which it is appropriate to poop on an airplane. The fact that people are just going to like, oh, I guess I'll just take a dump on an airplane. That's crazy.
Yeah, I agree.
I will
especially
say
because I don't fit very well in them.
The worst place I've ever clogged a toilet was at an IHOP. I was there at least with my mom and dad. I forget if my brother and sister were there. And I was a younger kid at that point, so I didn't know how to unclog a toilet myself or anything, or really what to do at all in that scenario. And so I clogged the toilet. It starts welling up and getting ready to overflow. And so I do the only thing I know how to do, which is panic, walk out and tell my parents, we've got to go.
No, we got to get out of here. The toilet's overflowing. Yeah, you got to teach your kids righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. You got to turn that water off when it starts to rise.
I remember, and that's when, and Mike was young. He was definitely young then, but that was the moment that I taught him that, because he panicked. Obviously, he's a young kid. He panicked. The water was overflowing. Everything was overflowing. And he came out and said that, and I ran in there and turned the water off to the toilet and used it as a teaching moment for one Mike Golic Jr.
That's good parenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, unsurprisingly, that someone's going and doing enough damage at IHOP to go clog a toilet. It's your boy. No surprises, no shock there. So, yeah, just a word to the wise. You know what? If we could teach someone that this morning, kids, if you've never unclogged a toilet, or parents, if you've never had that conversation with your kids, go and show them where the water shutoff valve is. Remind them it's righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Teach them how to use the plunger in a pinch, because it's going to be valuable to you later on. Because especially, you know, anyone who's really out on a date here, the last thing you want to do is clog the toilet at a potential new significant other's places. You guys know, especially the guys know what I'm talking about. The fear of God that comes with potentially having to poop at a new lover's house and trying to figure out how to negotiate when and how that's appropriate has led to a lot of really dicey situations that are all made a lot easier with just some simple bathroom knowledge.
Again, unless you're going to shit your pants, which I don't know if I'm did.
I don't think.
Unless you're going to do that, you need to hold it, okay? You need to hold it.
Yeah, you do. And I think because a plane does rarely clog, so a more normal place that you wouldn't want to clog a toilet, I think, would be where a venue where the bathrooms are for men and women, right? And you clog one of those. That's just, you know, quite honestly, Mike, you clog a toilet in a guy's locker room, you don't care that much, right? I mean, it's a bunch of guys, you don't really care. You'll turn the water off so it doesn't overflow. But a bathroom that's used by both men and women, that would be a tough situation.
We could do this all day. Weird badge of pride is if you clog a toilet that's got industrial strength plumbing, because then you know built different and you've really done some damage in there. Doing it at some home mom and pop toilet, not nearly as honorable. But like I said, we could spend all day on this at GoJo and Golic on Twitter. If you've got some of the worst stories of the worst place that you've clogged a toilet, at GoJo and Golic on Twitter is what I want to hear from y'all. In the meantime, Jesse, let's hear from Deebo Samuel on why he choked out his long snapper yesterday.
Yeah, that was just a crazy moment that we saw on the sidelines. We actually have Kyle Shanahan coming in and explaining kind of what happened.
I don't have much of a take because I didn't see any of it, so I just got told about it. But probably an obvious one. Guy's frustrated, and something probably happened, and brothers scuffle a little bit. I didn't see any of it, so I don't know how bad it was, but something I'm not too worried about. We'll fix it. If it hasn't been fixed already, we'll fix it on the plane, and we'll go back to loving each other tomorrow.
I mean, I have a brother, and we've never choked each other out like that, so I don't know if it was really a brother scuffle, but
Yeah.
Yeah, not really sure what here, Dad. Deebo Samuel just kind of cited frustration as it was him and it really the long snapper Tabor Pepper in here. Jake Moody looked like he kind of got implicated in the mush. Jake Moody, who had missed 3 field goals. And so, Dad, like sometimes you see in practice, I remember getting frustrated with kickers because they would be in charge of kicking to get us out of sprints or something like that, and they don't do anything else all day besides go over on their little separate field and kick. And so you'd mutter some things under your breath that maybe you're not proud of to one of your buddies who just had a bad day kicking and cost you some gassers. These are games with real life stakes, but usually we don't see this kind of boil over and might be indicative of just the frustration overall of the season for the 49ers, because trying to fight your long snapper, usually not the route to go for Deebo Samuel or anyone.
Well, this was Deebo said something to Jake Moody, the kicker, and much like O-line, D-line, one-on-one, no matter who starts the fight or what the fight is, D-line 6 up for D-line, O-line 6 up for O-line. In this case, Tabor Pepper stuck up for his kicker. You know, Deebo Samuel was saying something to Moody, and the long snapper was having none of it. And he got in the grill of Deebo Samuel. So you had special teamers. And listen, I say that tongue in cheek, but that's what happens. You stick up for your teammate in a fight with another team, but you stick up for your position group if it's a fight within a team. And as I've always said, I don't put much into sideline altercations or sideline blowups because they're emotional. But normally you don't really say a whole lot to a kicker because you know you may need him later. And in this case, they did need him later. So rarely do you get in the grill of a kicker during a game.
The shots of Deebo Samuel's face completely devoid of joy after Jake Moody hits the game-winning field goal at the end of the game after all of this was too perfect to script. It was like you could put the Curb Your Enthusiasm music underneath that one and it would have ended the episode great. So just a word to the wise. You can be frustrated all you want. Don't put your hands on your kickers and long snappers. They're people too, and the long snappers will come for you. They will come for you. Coming up next, we'll talk to our favorite protector, Marshall Newhouse, off the top of the next hour as we look ahead to Monday Night Football.
Let's check out a DraftKings crowning moment. One bettor was putting faith in Patrick Mahomes, sort of, in the last seconds of the game. A bet went in on the Chiefs as the Broncos lined up for a 35-yard field goal, plus 1,000 odds for the miss or block in this case. Mahomes does it again. Though, as we just heard, only cheeseburgers for Leo Chanel. All right, guys, Crowning Moments is presented by DraftKings. Submit your winning bets for a chance to be featured. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Up next here on GoJo and Golic, the NFL week is not over yet, people, okay? Marshall Newhouse going to join the program to break down Monday Night Football. All that and more coming up in Hour 2 of GoJo and Golic. Stay tuned.
All right, hour number 2 here on GoJo and Golic. Awesome and always delightful on a Monday to welcome in our friend Marshall Newhouse, former NFL offensive lineman, now one of the great voices and analysts you can hear as a part of the pregame power-up, 6 p.m. Eastern Mondays and Thursdays on the DraftKings Network, getting you ready for the primetime action. We got the Dolphins and we got the Rams coming up tonight. But before that, Marshall, we got sidetracked because Rizzy, the new interim head coach of the New Orleans Saints, clogged the toilet in the head coach's bathroom before his first game as the head coach of the Saints. Is there a story that you have of the worst place that you've ever clogged a toilet that comes to mind?
Not me clogging the toilet. I just remember some away locker rooms, both in college and the pros, that are just, they're not comfortable places. You're fitting 100 people and there's 2 stalls. So you're getting real familiar with people in and out pregame. And some guys, listen, the smells like to travel, and we're in tight, confined areas, and you just get comfortable with people.
Seems to matter less, though, in a locker room, right? I mean, in a locker room full of guys, it's almost like you can put it aside more than being in an area where you don't know somebody and you're walking out of the toilet and you clogged it.
Oh, yeah, we know what time it is. And even I remember playing in Buffalo as an away team. There's one time that their sewage system backed up, and so the entire locker room just smelled like sewage the entire time. And we went out and tapped that ass. So it just happens.
It happens. It's par for the course. And like you said, you plug your nose and you find a way to move on and get it done. And speaking of moving on and getting it done, Marshall, before we get to Monday Night Football, let's talk about what we saw on Sunday Night Football. The Lions and Jared Goff throw 5 interceptions and still find a way with a degree of difficulty at all Madden to come back and win this thing. What impressed you the most about what the Lions were able to do in the midst of especially that first half to come back?
Well, I mean, as they were, giving the ball away like it was a 501c3, both sides of them, you just felt like the Lions were a team that wasn't going to phase them. I mean, they were down by 10. You just felt like, all right, they're going to figure this out. Whether they win the game or not remains to be seen, but they're not a team anymore that we see just kind of crumble in those moments. And what do we see? They give up no points in the second half, and Goff comes and leads them back, figures out kind of the turnover issue, and they claw the way back. And they give their incredible kicker a chance to win the game. And that's just the Lions that we've come to know under Dan Campbell.
And on the same side of that is great teams find a way. The Chiefs, are on the verge of losing their first game, and they've been hanging by a thread, as you know, for the last few weeks with the way they've been playing. Is that just a function of great teams find a way to win?
It's great teams find a way to win, but it's like, you're the Chiefs. Everyone is playing like you're their Super Bowl. And so they're used to that by now. And they're just doing whatever they can on offense and defense and then now special teams to just eke these wins out. Because to them, all that matters is getting that first round bye. Now that there's one less of them and getting ready for the playoffs. And so they've got the main thing as the main thing. And yeah, it might not look like we're used to it looking ugly at times, kind of chaotic and scattered at times, but listen, there's something to be said for just finding a way to massage a win, and they've got what that takes because they're used to it.
They certainly have found a way to win, and they sometimes have to win ugly like they did this last weekend here. Nothing can be as ugly, though, as what we sent to Germany, Marshall. The Giants go and lose a thriller to the Panthers in Munich for one of the many abroad games, and as the commissioner announced, we're going to have even more come next year with Spain on the menu, Ireland maybe getting called up to the show for the NFL as well here as we continue to export our best. Bryce Young back in the saddle for Carolina. Have you seen anything from him since he's returned from being benched early this season in favor of Andy Dalton that would suggest that maybe his future in Carolina isn't yet completely sealed?
I think he's making a case for sure. Some of the throws that we saw with him out of Alabama are starting to kind of peek their head out a little bit. These are confidence throws where he sees what he knows he sees. He puts his foot in the ground or he's making a play and he puts the ball on the dime. Now, obviously, the pieces that are surrounding him are just not as good as what he had in college, to be honest. But you can see that confidence building in him. Now, do the Panthers have enough evidence, or will they have enough evidence by the end of the season to make that very crucial decision? Because they're going to be at the top of the draft again. And do they try to trade Bryce away at some point to get some capital to then set themselves up to do this all over again? You know, this is a bad team, frankly, doing that. But if you have a guy that you believe in, you can build around, then you go all in and you build around him. And so I think he's had some flashes. I don't know if he's got everything that they're looking for yet, but he's on trial right now. This is a tryout. This is absolutely an interview for him the rest of the season.
Yeah, for a guy that it's not a tryout, he's going to be there at least for the near future. And it's not the best team having a bad year, but the Bears may have been the most hyped team going into this season of the improvement that everybody thought they would have. And while they're just, one win under 500, they have a murderer's row schedule coming up, and they are not playing well. What are you seeing out of them?
Yeah, a kind of an unfortunate slide at Caleb Williams' performance. And, you know, we can chalk a lot of it up to him being a rookie quarterback. But I put a lot of the blame on OC Shane Waldron. I think there's a lot of, you know, easier reads you could be manufacturing for a young quarterback, even a guy as talented as Caleb. Now, sometimes those reads are there, and Caleb is foregoing the short route and trying to make a home run play, which we saw from him out of USC. But a lot of these times, he's having to go through 3 progression reads, which I know they want him to turn into that quarterback, but there's baby steps here. And they're asking him to take these giant leaps, and NFL defenses don't care. They are not having it. And you can see that production slipping off after we thought we saw a couple games where he's stacking successes. All of a sudden, we're like, is this a competent, even offense? And is he the guy anymore? And I don't believe that you can kind of say, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I think Shane Waldron can do a much better job of scheming Caleb some easy completions, some things to get him in rhythm that he doesn't have to use the entire field, because there's nothing wrong with letting a young quarterback find his way through the darkness.
Yeah, certainly, like you said, I think still a lot of ability to work with there, but now potentially getting ready to do it on another voice in his ear come this offseason if things continue to trend this way can always be a dicey proposition. One more for me, Marshall, before we look ahead to the Monday Night Football game here. Who would you rather be going forward? The Dallas Cowboys coming off this shellacking here with their injured quarterback Dak Prescott on the sideline, Jerry Jones getting chirped about the sun in his stadium, or the New York Jets fresh off an ass-whooping from the hands of Kyler Murray in one of the most efficient games we've seen from a quarterback all season, with your aging quarterback continuing to look the part?
Man, you're giving me 2 really, really bad options, and I'm going to take neither of them. I would rather not be either one of these teams. But listen, the Cowboys, to me, is such a structural problem because Jerry Jones has made the value of their team is established by him just being him, and him being the guy that you see first. He talks around and above the head coach. He talks around and above the starting quarterback. He's sneak dissing Dak here and talking to people, responding about the stadium and the way it's oriented with the sun setting and stuff like that. And that's just, we've seen that now since the last time they won a Super Bowl, that's just not a winning proposition. It's great for value. It's great for the organizational value, but they have not been sniffing a winning proposition, Super Bowl winning proposition in a long time. And yeah, the Jets are the Jets. We're used to that. But the Cowboys have expectations all the time and have at least a track record more recently to prove that. But Jerry, I think, is his own worst enemy. And I don't see it getting better because he's not giving up the reins of that organization.
So now we look at the Monday night game, Miami going to play the Rams. The Rams right in the thick of a hotly contested division with all 4 teams. Miami at 2-6, Marshall, is literally 1 loss out of the last wild card spot. Do you give them, now that Tua is back, and if he stays healthy, any chance to sneak into the playoffs?
Listen, I absolutely do. I still think they're a very flawed team, but he's actually been playing pretty well. Outside of all the concussion talk and the rest of his career with his head injury talk, he's been playing some pretty good football. Now, the rest of the team has to kind of catch up. They lost a close one at Buffalo, but they're right there in the thick of things, and I think he and Mike McDaniels do have a connection. When they're both together, they can do some special things on offense. Now, Tyreek Hill has a potential wrist injury. We'll see how that affects whether he starts or not, or what value he brings. But I like the Dolphins for sure to at least try to make a run. But listen, they need exceptional play. They have no room for error from Tua, and he's been playing well, but he's got to continue to up that ante. And the Rams are on, they're on a 4-game winning streak. We left them for dead. We were asking, are they sellers at the trade deadline? And this is just another McVay job, another Stafford defying time quarterbacking job. And so I love what I see out of them. But I think Miami definitely has a chance to sneak in back door.
You mentioned Tyreek Hill dealing with that wrist injury. Austin Jackson, their starting right tackle, out. Javon Holland at safety, questionable. They'll get Zach Seiler back, but they've certainly dealt with a lot of injury, not just at the quarterback position in Miami over the course of the season. But you're right, you'll get no tears from the Rams on that, who have seen both their star receivers leave with injury and come back. They just got Steve Avila and Jonah Jackson back on the offensive line as well. But Marshall, I want to ask you, as a former offensive lineman, about what you've liked from especially the rookies on this young Los Angeles Rams defensive line. Braden Fisk off a 2-sack performance. Jared Verse, one of the best at pressuring the quarterback in the NFL. What's made them so successful so early?
Listen, they're dudes. I've been watching some of their film, especially Verse off the edge. He's strong. He is. We call him country strong. I don't know exactly where he's from. I'll have to do some research, but you can see at the point of attack and pass rushes, he is walking lineman back. He's got so much room to improve as far as his technique. He's not even throwing in second, third counter moves, and he's a strong guy off the edge. And Fisk, similarly, out of Florida State, these guys are just holding their own. None of them are Aaron Donald. I don't think the expectation was ever that they're going to be, but they're providing a lot of depth and a lot of vindication for the Rams, who have drafted pretty well when they get the chance for those two guys, taking them in the position they're taking. And they're performing as rookies, which you expect a level of performance, but you expect them to go through some rookie wall, some pains. But these guys are actually becoming valuable on that defense for this team.
We kind of know in the AFC who the best teams are. There's a clear delineation of Kansas City, of Buffalo, of Pittsburgh, of Baltimore. If you think Detroit is the best team in the NFC, who's second?
Listen, for me, it's Philly if Nick Sirianni doesn't just soil himself. For whatever reason, he got me in my brain, off camera, we were talking about some bodily movements. But if Nick Sirianni doesn't do too much, he's absolutely sometimes just doing more than is required, outthinking himself. They've got the most talented roster in the NFC, in my opinion. And so they have no reason to not be there at the end of the NFC Championship, playing to go to the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts, listen, we don't think he is Pat Mahomes after he got that deal, after taking them to the Super Bowl, but he's more than capable. He can do a lot of things for you. And if you call the game with his strengths in mind, there's enough talent around them that they could absolutely beat anyone in the league. And so after the Lions, give me Philadelphia.
Marshall's absolutely right. I think there is a conversation around Jalen Hurts that's ridden the roller coaster that might finally be steadying close to the finish line here, of a guy who, you're right, maybe he's not a top 5 quarterback in this league, but on his best day can play like a top 10 one with a unique enough skill set to help you out here. So, Marshall, before we let you go, we should probably have you start picking these games here. The Rams 2.5-point favorites against the Dolphins on this one. Who do you like tonight?
I like the Rams. They're on a heater right now. I think they smell blood. They're incentivized because they're chasing the rest of their division and chasing some of these teams to a wild card spot in the NFC. I'll take the Rams in a close one tonight.
All right, there we go. And to pay off what Marshall mentioned behind the scenes, first off, Jared Verse is from Dayton, Ohio, so shout out to Dad in Ohio, getting some love for a tough defensive lineman, making it happen early on. And we talked off the top about clogging toilets. The thing I've mentioned to Marshall that's got poo on the brain for all of us is, if you want to hope that Nick Sirianni doesn't defecate himself, keep him out of bookstores. What we found out is there's an actual phenomenon called the Mariko Aoki phenomenon. It's a Japanese expression referring to the sudden urge to defecate that is felt upon entering bookstores. I thought I just liked the peace and quiet of a Barnes & Noble that lent itself well to that situation. Apparently it's a real thing. So Nick Sirianni, stay away from bookstores between now and the playoffs, and the Eagles are going to be fine. Marshall will do the same before the pregame power up again. That's 6 o'clock Eastern tonight on the DraftKings Network. Always appreciate the time, buddy. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, man. Boy, we've gone down a road.
I mean, we're just overgrown toddlers. So once you introduce, and Darren Rizzy, again, thank you for giving this gift of your honesty at the microphone before one of the biggest games of your life to now lead us down the path we all wanted to go to, which is talking about poop on air.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr., and Mike Golic Sr. here with you. And it was an absolutely crazy weekend in college football. Okay, on Saturday, 2 top 10 teams lose. Alabama lets everybody know that they're still Alabama. Iowa State and Pitt really dropped the ball with losses, which means conference championship chances are basically gone. So let's take a look at the new AP Top 25 right here. 4 Big Ten teams in the top 5. Ole Miss jumps to 10. Guys, let's hand out some grades from the college football weekend. Bad news first. Who gets the worst grade of the week?
Ooh. Yeah, Dad, I think this one might have to go to LSU, unfortunately. And we just had LSU head coach Brian Kelly on with us this last week ahead of the game against Alabama, where they're at home in what we talked about was a playoff elimination game. Now, I will say the bad vibes off the fake bootleg Tiger that got brought into the stadium, and no fault of the Tiger, seemed to permeate it onto the field there. And now LSU gets embarrassed at home by Alabama. Jalen Milroe, exactly what they feared, especially as a rusher against a defense that struggled so much with it against Texas A&M, go and steamroll them 42-13 in a game that vaults Alabama back into all the conversations they wanted to be a part of and shuts the door on the playoff hopes of the 2024 season for LSU. So I'd have to give them the worst grade of this weekend. A no-show like that at home in that environment is going to be difficult to stomach for a while.
I mean, I would probably agree just because of the smackdown that took place. But, I mean, Miami losing to Georgia Tech. Now, Miami's been living on a wing and a prayer for the entire season. But to go from undefeated to losing to Georgia Tech to now SMU is undefeated in the conference, and Clemson and Miami both have one loss in the conference. So Miami, again, they were kind of hanging on by a thread. So I guess it's not shocking they lost to a team that they should beat because they almost did it, 3 or 4 other times this year. But I would probably go as that's the worst loss.
Yeah, that's certainly up there, but I think you're right. This is sort of about the expectations that we had for these teams, and I think I had come around to LSU being better than I expected defensively and was miscalculated that one. With Miami, we knew this was coming eventually. They played with fire for far too long, and Georgia Tech, Brent Key, it's just dangerous enough of a team. We've seen them when they're healthy, and Haynes King was in and out of the lineup in this game. There were multiple quarterbacks. There's all the stuffs that can go into a game script like this, but at the end of the day, most of Miami's roster hadn't played up to the level that the quarterback and then Xavier Restrepo at receiver had been playing to the entire year. So this felt inevitable, and now you're right, throws a big wrench in how we discuss a lot of this going forward with the playoff. We'll wait and see what the committee's rankings are coming up tomorrow, but if you look at the AP poll that came out yesterday, Miami drops down to 12 now. So in the AP poll, you have 12 Miami, number 14 SMU, and number 17 Clemson, which puts the ACC that already was in a precarious position relative to getting a team or multiple into the playoff now there, where BYU, Dad, on the other side gets to hang on. We'll talk about them in a few here, but I would say you're right. LSU, and certainly, you had the moment with the fans throwing garbage onto the field at LSU that's unfortunately become a staple of college football in the SEC after what happened earlier this season. And then, got to talk about Georgia going and getting out physical on the road by Ole Miss. This is exactly what Lane Kiffin and company had promised with this roster. And Walter Nolan and that defense. Carson Beck only had 1 interception, but also lost a fumble. Georgia lost 2 on the day. And Walter Nolan, one of the best D linemen in the country, and that Ole Miss defensive front, sacked Carson Beck 5 times in a game where they did look like the more physical outfit. And that's not something we get to say very often.
No, it's not. So Ole Miss keeps themselves in the hunt. But now Tennessee plays Georgia this week. There are 3 one-loss teams in the SEC: Tennessee, A&M, and Texas. And A&M and Texas play one another the last game of the season. So someone will have 2 losses there. If Tennessee gets by Georgia, and that's certainly a big if, they play UTEP and Vanderbilt, which Vanderbilt's been playing great this year. But Tennessee, obviously this game with Georgia is going to be very difficult, but they can control their destiny to be in the SEC title game.
Yeah, Tennessee's a really interesting one, and I think that matchup against Georgia, kind of 2 similarly flawed teams in that, hey, the defenses in both can rip on their best day, and offensively, we've seen Georgia struggle to get any running game going, that group struggling to protect Carson Beck. Carson Beck struggled turning the ball over, and then you turn on the tape with Tennessee. I was just talking to Cole Kublik, who does a great job over at the SEC Network, about how a lot of the Tennessee offensive struggles can be boiled down to Nico Iamaleava, who certainly now there's the health concerns with him, but also just the inconsistency in him distributing the ball, especially on deep passes in that offense for Josh Heupel, makes them an incredibly interesting team. So those are the struggles from this weekend. Dad, we also have the other side. We talked about Utah and BYU. How about the Utah athletic director, Mark Harlan, coming out firing after the Holy War, where Utah loses by a point in a game where he feels there was a holding call late in the game on Utah defensively that gave BYU the chance to go and finish the job. And he gets up in the post-game press conference and talks about how he believes the game was stolen from them, said he was disgusted by the professionalism of the Big 12 officiating crew, seemed to even openly question Utah's move to the Big 12, and was promptly fined $40,000 and issued a public reprimand by Brett Yormark and the Big 12 brass here. And Dad, you look at the play here. Listen, it's a call that you certainly don't love to see go your way at home, but by no means one where I thought it was egregious enough to decide to burn down your relationship with the conference.
Yeah, I don't know if that was frustration talking, but this team has not been doing well. They're sitting at 4-5 right now, lost their quarterback yet again, who can come back for a 20th year next year in Cam Rising. So yeah, he kind of lost his mind. And they play Colorado this week. Colorado is becoming the story, aren't they? If Colorado, they play Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. They run that table. They're in the Big 12 championship game. Again, they control their own destiny, and they're not ranked very high. They're 18 in the AP poll. What were they, 20 in the first college football poll? So, I mean, they're not going to move up a ton. They play two under 500 teams. Actually, they finished with 3 under 500 teams. So it's not like they're going to really jump up in the rankings if they were to make it to the Big 12 championship. And then they could be, one of the in the college playoffs with a win then.
Yeah, I mean, God, think about and we've talked about the lack of media circus following Colorado since they've decided to be just good at football instead of just interesting off the field in all the ways that they've been. Imagine the uproar if now, after all the talk we've had about the idea of a bid thief in college football, where if you'd had the highest rate group of 5 champion, and this was the scenario everyone played out because it's statistically the most realistic, where what if you had Boise and Ashton Genty go and do their thing and they finish 15th and win the Mountain West? They're going to take a spot from a team inside the top 12. We're in a world now where Boise started off the first college football playoff ranking in the top 12 and could potentially live in a world now where if Colorado goes and beats BYU, they could end up being the bid thief. You could have Deion Sanders, Colorado, ranked outside of the top 12. And if they go in, which is very realistic at this point, go and beat a BYU team that I think they could out-athlete. That's the one area I look at with BYU's roster that I have questions about is top-end athleticism, and end up hawking a spot from someone inside the top 12 after winning the Big 12 championship would be an incredible way to start the 12-team playoff era, Dad.
What are the odds that Colorado would pass Boise State? Could Boise State be one of the top 4 seeds? Right? Yeah. If Colorado were to win the Big 12, would they pass Boise State in the rankings enough to be the number 4 seed, and where Boise then would be wherever they're ranked? If the group of 5 was in the top 4 spots, that got a bye. Now, BYU, if Tennessee loses to Georgia and Indiana loses to Ohio State, BYU could be as high as 5 in the country if and when Colorado played them. And if Colorado beat them, they may jump Boise State because it would be such an impressive win.
Certainly a possibility, and you laying that all out is a good reminder for everybody. Long season, a lot's going to happen to the teams playing each other between now and then, especially when we get to conference championship weekend. So they are a clear winner, though, right now. Colorado, they survived and weathered early on long enough, have come together and are playing their best ball. And the rest of the Big 12, Iowa State loses again this weekend, all starting to come into formation to get them where they need to be. But, Dad, if you're looking for another team that scores high marks coming off this last weekend, congratulations to Indiana. 10 games that they've won now this season. They get a big win against really their toughest test so far from a personnel standpoint. A 20-15 win over Michigan in a game where you saw by the end, this is a group that, while quarterback and receiver are as talented as anyone in the country, and I love their offensive line and how hard they play, physically they were outmatched by this group. And so by the end, you could tell that was a group that was sucking wind after having to deal with a bunch of future first-round draft picks getting after them all day. But they maintain their position. And don't look now, Dad, they move up into number 5 in the AP poll, which, again, for everybody out there, does not matter anymore. The AP poll is great. It's fun to talk about today before we get the new round of CFP rankings tomorrow. But the only rankings that will determine anything with the college football playoff are done by that committee on Tuesday nights that we get to react to then. But it's still just an indicator of, man, how far this program has come in year 1 under Curt Cignetti.
Oh, I mean, and listen, if right now it's Indiana and Oregon. If they win out, they're playing in the Big Ten championship game. But Indiana has a game with Ohio State November 23rd. If Ohio State wins that game, we'll get a rematch of Ohio State and Oregon of a 32-31 game. Would be the second matchup of possibly 3 if they were to meet in the playoffs. But for Indiana, even if they lose a close game to Ohio State, I firmly believe they'll be in the top 12, and they won't have to play in a conference championship game, and they won't have an extra game, and they'll be in the top 12. So just have a good showing against Ohio State. Obviously, they want to win, be in the Big Ten championship game, which they would be guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. But even a close loss to OSU, they're going to be playing extra football.
I will be curious to see. So again, they're 5 in the 8 people. They were 8 in the first college football playoff rankings, behind Tennessee, who we just talked about, who moved up considerably, behind Penn State already. And so Miami and Georgia both losing. Is that going to be enough to vault them up into the back end of that top 5 if Texas and Penn State move up in the ways that we've seen in the AP poll there? Will that win against a Michigan team that we know is talented? And I think it was really good for Indiana to see from a football sense before you go against another very talented group in Ohio State that's got a much better offense to go along with it on the other side. I do wonder how much credit they're going to get from that from the committee. That remains to be seen for them. So they certainly handled their business. They've been a great team all season long, the first 10-win season in school history for Indiana. And then there's the one that we were back at South Bend for this weekend, Dad. Notre Dame also holds serve and continues to do it with the style points that I think they need at this juncture based on that Northern Illinois loss that everyone talks about. They blast and put 50 points on a Florida State team that only manages to score 3 on the other side. And while I think you can say a lot about this Notre Dame team, Dad, they've handled their business ever since that loss, and they've put everything on tape that you'd want to see from a playoff team.
They absolutely have. They have not played down to their competition. They've destroyed every team since a Northern Illinois loss, except for Louisville. Louisville was a one-score game. It was 31-24, but 66-7, 28-3, 49-7, 31-13, 51-14, 52-3. They have taken care of their business. So can it be enough to run the table, because Army isn't going to be high ranked at all, as we know? They'll be in the playoffs if they run the table for sure. Could they be in the top 8 and get themselves a home game? I think would be the question for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think that's what people are curious about now. And for anyone that potentially is worried about making that trip, was unseasonably warm this weekend for South Bend. Temperatures mostly in the low 40s, high 30s, which if you're used to northern Indiana in November, the fact that we went back and it didn't snow felt like an act of God. But that's a place where now all of a sudden, and I said it earlier in the season and I meant it, they were not playing anywhere close to a playoff team even early in the season after a win like Texas A&M, after the loss against Northern Illinois in those games after. Now Riley Leonard looks comfortable like the receiver that you thought, or the quarterback you thought you were getting. This young offensive line has grown into itself and gotten a little bit healthier. Defensively, they've overcome injury, and Howard Cross, one of their star D tackles, went down, rolled his ankle. Looks like he'll be good and back at some point towards the home stretch of the season. That group has been lethal, and now they're a team that absolutely, I think, once again, not only has a chance to potentially make it to the playoff, but based off what we've seen this year, which is a lack of a truly great team, potentially even win games once they get there if they can go and finish out the job.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Jesse Cofield, Mike Golic Jr., and Mike Golic Sr. here with you. Let's do a little NBA shoot-around as we work our way through everything that happened in the association this weekend. So the Bucks looked like they might be in a position to beat the Celtics. Just kidding. They did not. The GIF going around, okay, is Giannis giving Jaylen Brown the old too slow move, okay? But Jaylen Brown and the Celtics get the win. Here's Brown on this move and what happened.
Giannis hit you with the offensive foul, and then he fake shook your hand and pulled it back. Are you laughing at that? Do you think it's funny, or does that kind of piss you off?
Giannis is a child. I'm just focused on helping my team get a win, and that's what we did tonight.
I feel like, is he trying to say that as an insult? Like, Giannis knows he's a child. He loves it.
I can't tell because Jaylen Brown, when I originally read the comments and didn't see it, he's got that little smirk on his face that makes me think that, he's just kind of, shooting shots back. Because you're right, the brand of Giannis Antetokounmpo is incredibly strong in that he is a gigantic little kid. We've seen it from the eating habits that he's picked up coming over and trying out foods through his early run being in the States, to even when he's gotten it, all the sexual innuendo he weaves into press conferences here, his Instagram comments under his wife's photos. Like, the guy loves to have a good time. And Dad, honestly, he's probably working overtime to do it now for his sanity, because the season continues to be a disaster for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And Jaylen Brown certainly has the high ground here, because the Celtics still look like a great team in their title defense, and the Milwaukee Bucks look like a team that could be hitting the scrap heap soon.
Oh my God, they're 2-8 at this point and going in the wrong direction. Yeah, Giannis is a big child. The dude has fun. The dude, maybe his thought of fun is different than other people's thought of fun, but he's enjoying himself. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and criticize a guy for having fun, but the team is not having fun. The Celtics are the Celtics. The Bucks in this one led by 16, up to 11 at half, and just obviously couldn't hold the lead. They're a team that's in trouble. We keep looking at the Eastern Conference and the teams that are going to contend with Boston. Right now, it looks like Cleveland, who's off to an unbelievable start. But Milwaukee, we kept wondering, could they mesh him and Dame, and obviously Middleton to an extent? Could they mesh? But boy, are they having issues.
Yeah, vibes seem horrific around there. It's given way to all of the, Giannis trade scuttlebutt that everyone's tried to have the conversation around. So I don't know how that ship steadies soon, because, again, for Doc Rivers, this is unfortunately going to continue to be an indictment of him, too, as he ages through his coaching career and gets further and further from that championship with the Boston Celtics. There's going to be plenty of people that point to him and his ability to try and help bring them together and get the best out of these parts involved. And this has always kind of been the delicate dance that Giannis has done with the Bucks, Dad, where at every turn he's reminded them, if you don't keep doing right by me, I will go and find someone who will, while I'm as young and talented as I am, playing the best basketball of his career, at least in this range. So it's going to be fascinating to watch what they do and how they navigate that. And they've dealt with injury over the last number of years. Chris Middleton and his status, I would argue, has been one of the biggest underlying undercurrents for that team. But Jesse, right now, they're not the only ones. There's a bunch of other teams in the NBA dealing with some pretty serious injury, especially in the Western Conference.
Yeah, so Oklahoma City falls to the Warriors, and they take another L. Chet Holmgren falls and fractures his pelvis. He's going to be out allegedly 8 to 10 weeks. Thunder still near the top of the West, but obviously going to be without one of their stars. And I fear I don't really understand the pelvis if you can fracture it and be back in 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, the fractured pelvis, Dad, sounds like more of a car accident injury than it does a sports injury here. This happened about 6:50 left in the first quarter as he hit the deck pretty hard. And we always have known that Chet Holmgren is not an overly large man in terms of like girth and the cushioning that would help in situations like this. But Dad, such an integral part of what they've done. You talked about and lauded the hot start that he's had to his season last week, coming out of the gates looking every bit like he's going to challenge Wemby for that Defensive Player of the Year. that seemed like a foregone conclusion. And as a guy that's such a huge part of this young Oklahoma City core, it's going to be interesting how they navigate this in the interim and then how they go about reintegrating him coming off of what is a pretty severe injury in most people's mind.
Yeah, the injuries we're going to talk about, this one has him out the longest of the players we're going to talk about. And I guess you look at the, injuries happen every year to top players. And I guess I would look at the glass half full to say out to 10 weeks in November is a lot different than out to 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks in April or May, or getting closer to playoff time. So he'll have time to heal up, extra time if he needs. I still think they'll be one of the top teams or near the top without him. So it's a lot of it is about when you get hurt and how you come back from it, but certainly enough time left in the season to absorb this injury.
And such a markedly different feeling around the team than the last time he was injured. Obviously, his first NBA season, he missed all 82. He missed the entire season because of a Liz Frank injury and put off the start of what's been a great young career for him so far. Played all 82 games last season and has looked great early on in this season. So, he already tweeted out from the hospital bed, obviously having gone through this before. This invites some similar demons. And so how this team goes about navigating this, going to be interesting to watch there. But certainly not the only injury there, Jesse, in the Western Conference, as Kevin Durant and Ja Morant both looks like going to be dealing with some stuff right now.
Yeah, so Durant's right calf that led to the Achilles injury in the 2019 finals. So we're worried now he's got another calf injury on his left calf. It's a strain. But does that worry you given what happened with his right calf last time?
Soft tissue injury.
I think so, Dad.
Soft tissue.
Yeah.
Soft
Well,
tissue.
and Dad, I think it's the soft tissue that points back to this underlying, much more serious injury that we saw with Kevin Durant. Like, remember, this Achilles is part of the reason people were so freaked out about the McCaffrey stuff is we remembered what it's done to guys on the basketball court. And I had someone say the other day, like, it is amazing how well Kevin Durant has played, as if the Achilles was never a part of his history, the way that he had moved, the way that he had gone about his work. But being this age that Kevin Durant is and having that in your backdrop over the course of a long season, it was always the worry it was going to pop up at some point now for a Suns team that we know still is going to try and make something out of this core. But seeing this early is a great way to brush you back with that fastball off so many sort of high-level takes about the Suns.
Yeah. I mean, that could linger. You have Zion Williamson for the Pelicans who got a hammy. That could linger, and he's had his issues getting nicked up year to year. Ja Morant's his own worst enemy because he jumps so damn high. He jumped so high and got kind of taken out and fell on his hip, and he's going to miss some time, landing on his hip. But that dude, I mean, is a ridiculous athlete. But yeah, for Durant, because of his age and because of the injuries to his calves, because of Zion and he's obviously younger, but getting nicked up, you worry about not coming back from the injury, but the injury resurfacing throughout the season, especially close to playoff time.
And you wonder if that has to be an adjustment made by the Suns and how they deploy Kevin Durant from here on out. Durant so far this season averaging 38.8 minutes per game, which would be the most he's averaged since the 2010-2011 season, if that had kept up. Obviously, it's early, but again, for a guy who's 36-year-old, so he's not quite LeBron James yet in terms of being 40 and a total graybeard, but 36 years old for a guy with Kevin Durant's body type, with that history of lower body injuries there. Again, you're not going to write everything off completely right now, but over the course of these long seasons in the NBA, and we've talked about this ad nauseum with the 76ers being a team that's led by Joel Embiid, who's obviously a big man, and there's a correlation between weight and 7-footers with lower body injuries that certainly makes that a different conversation. Kevin Durant more slight, but Dad, a guy who asks a lot of his body athletically now, to have this pop up in November is concerning.
Yeah, bottom line is that we've missed the mark to talk about. My Cleveland Cavaliers are undefeated. They're 11-0. I mean, right now, put them into the championship game, right?
The ultimate Cleveland bandwagon sports fan, my father, comes in at the end of the Guardian season with his flag out waving, and now the Cavaliers get off to a hot start. And all of a sudden, they had a great season last year, and I didn't hear boo from my dad. But now all of a sudden, coming out of the gate, they're the apple of his eye. Going to start showing up here in a Donovan Mitchell jersey soon here. I see right through your lies. All right, time to finish off the show the way we always do. This, that, the third. 3 quick stories to send you into the rest of the day. Now, we already sent Dad into the rest of his day. He had to take off so he can make his flight back from Houston, so we wish him well and a safe day. There's the shot of his live shot at home in Arizona. He'll be back to it in no time for us tomorrow to recap everything we saw on Monday Night Football, get you ready for the college football playoff. In the meantime, though, make sure you check us out here live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network. Our new GoJo and Golic YouTube channel. We've heard a lot of people talking about difficult to find. Just go in the search tab at YouTube, type in GoJo and Golic. Go and make sure you subscribe. That way, if you subscribe and hit the little bell, it'll alert you every time we go live in the morning, so it's nice and easy for you to find us over here. Obviously, we've been over on the DraftKings main page for a while for the people that do watch it that way. Now we've just tried to make it easier to find all of our content under one umbrella on our own YouTube page. So thank you to everyone that's subscribed already. Keep checking that out. We'll keep posting about it in the interim since we know it's new and everyone's gotten used to their own habits here. But if you miss us live there or on any of the DraftKings streaming platforms, you can check out our great interviews with people like Marshall Newhouse, our friend, former NFL offensive lineman and pregame power-up co-host on there, wherever you get our podcast, or right here on the YouTube channel as soon as we get done. Guys, let's start off, Jesse, with this. Shadur Sanders over this weekend, beat Texas Tech in another Big 12 game to keep them in the mix for going and playing in the Big 12 title, their college football playoff hopes and dreams. But he also took some time to give back to the locals here, actually signing one of the tortillas that made its way down onto the field during the game. Now, for people unfamiliar at Texas Tech, they throw tortillas towards the end of the game here, which a lot of people can't actually trace the origin. The most popular theory is going back to a 1992 Texas A&M Texas Tech game where one ESPN announcer joked that Lubbock had nothing but Texas Tech football and a tortilla factory. And so as a response, the fans came in and tossed tortillas at kickoff, sparking that tradition. So nice to see Shadur going in and getting in with the local tradition and cuisine, although it looked like there was a hole in the middle. I don't know if they do that to toss it easier or what.
Yeah, also, you know, obviously somebody has the tortilla now. How do you even go about preserving something like that? Like, it's kind of cool, but like, what do you do with it? It's gonna, I mean, I don't know what the shelf life is on a tortilla, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna start to like mold a bit, you know? So if somebody wants to keep that, what do? Plastic baggie, throw it in the freezer?
Yeah, that's what I was going to wonder is, like, do you have to preserve this almost like it's an art exhibit where so many of those old papers, you've got to have them in an environment where there's no moisture or anything? Because I don't worry less about mold necessarily with this and more about it just getting so flaky that it eventually breaks up. Like those old, and I believe it's a flour tortilla as opposed to a corn tortilla, which would break up a little bit more. So there's the obvious differences there. I'm always, by the way, Jesse, I don't know how you feel, much more of a flour tortilla guy when given the opportunity than a corn tortilla.
I am too. And my husband gives me grief for it because he says corn is more traditional. I don't really care. I like the way the flour tortillas taste.
I mean, and they wrap better. They do everything. They've got more structural integrity to them.
The corn tortillas break the minute you try to do it, you know?
Exactly, and don't even get us started on the hard shell varietal here. The best combination of tortilla is at Taco Bell when they do the hard shell tortilla wrapped in the soft shell tortilla so that you can keep everything together in one bundle. It's why, Jesse, we need to get you there and change your life soon because it introduces a totally different way to do your at-home taco making that everybody can benefit from there. So I'll be interested to see now if this signed Shadur Sanders tortilla makes its way to any sort of platform where people can buy and sell these things, and who would actually purchase a signed tortilla. We're going to find that out next time on Dragon Ball Z. Jesse, let's get to that, though. We got to find out a lot about LeBron's dreams because this man is nothing if not terminally online in the way that we all are, and I deeply appreciate it.
Yeah, so I guess LeBron woke up and he just wanted to share with everybody his little dream that he had on Twitter. So he tweets out that I just woke up from a dream where I was playing for Duke for Coach K inside Cameron Indoor Stadium. It was insane in there. Told Coach K it was an honor to suit up for him, and he said the same thing back to me. He's such a legend. Then it turned right into a concert. Snoop and Dre were the performers, and they were doing the song the next episode. The roof inside Cameron damn near came off. Ha ha. Then my emoji clock went off, and I woke up. This sounds like a tweet from a 10-year-old. Like someone just woke up and was like, haha, LOL, let me tell you all this stuff. And I think it comes from LeBron just being surrounded by so many yes people that everyone's like, yes, everybody wants to hear about your dream, man. Like, it is important. We need you to tweet about your dream.
See, Jesse, I think it's much simpler than that. In a day and age where so many people of LeBron's stature have plenty of people that handle their social media, and I'm sure LeBron's got a team of people around him for some of the things he does with social media. This is still a guy that came of age like me. Like I always say, like our generation is the last of the daywalkers, people that had a life without internet as a part of their day-to-day from the moment that they were kids. We had a life before that and now a life with it. But he still comes from the, I got to share everything group. This is how we operated. And back in early Twitter, it was people tweeting like it was just their friends reading. And the most endearing thing about LeBron is he still tweets like it's just his close friends or family reading all of these tweets. And so he gets do you remember your dreams this vividly as LeBron does?
I feel like every once in a while I wake up and I have a really vivid one, but most of the time I don't remember anything. I don't remember having dreams.
I had a really interesting conundrum pop up the other night in that regard because I remembered a dream very vividly, and I seem to only remember my nightmares as vividly as I do in this case. But there was a person who I'm not friends with, but know in my life who died in my dream, and like very vividly to the point where I got up and I was like, do I need to tell them about what I saw in case this is some sort of premonition?
Yeah, I think you should keep that one to yourself. It could be like a self-fulfilling prophecy thing. But if something happens to this person, we'll know, that you're a witch. So
That's the thing, is I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't in this situation. Because if I say something, then you're right, and it happens. Now all of a sudden I've created a Final Destination situation. But then if I don't say something, yes, now I'm cursed with this knowledge and have to watch out and start to think back about what else I've dreamed that's potentially come true. So I don't know. It freaked me out a lot. I can still see it in my head. It's very vivid. This might be more for my therapist than for the audience that listens to the show. And so we'll move away from I'll add it. I mean, I'll do what I'm doing right now and share it with a national audience here instead of tweeting it out here. That's the thing, LeBron. Voice memos, the way of the future. That or come back on the podcast. We'll hear about your dreams all you want on here in LeBron's Dream Corner. Jesse, let's finish this show off the only way we possibly could to a day that seemed at least partially dedicated to poop. Last time out, we talked about black blobs that had washed up on a shore in Australia and not knowing what they were. We have found the answer, and it's exactly as bad as you'd expect.
Yeah, so we were like, oh, it's tar balls. There's been an oil spill. Humans need to be better, blah, blah, blah. And we thought that's a pretty bad scenario, right? Humans destroying the planet. It turns out it's even worse than we thought. Those little black balls are poop, okay? They're poop. They're human waste. They found drugs in them. Like, people are flushing things into the water system. It was just truly a nightmare scenario to find out what was inside those. And worse than we could have imagined, Gojo.
What a name for these things, too. Initially believing they were made of tar, this on the New York Post article, scientists at the University of New South Wales confirmed the sticky balls are, in fact, fatbergs, a revolting combination of human feces, hair, cooking oil, chemicals, fatty acid, illicit drugs, and other compounds. And the quote from the lead investigator, John Beeves, said, "They smell absolutely disgusting. They smell worse than anything you've ever smelled before." So again, it's just like what we've said. We have done irreparable harm to the oceans and the environment on this planet. I'd imagine we're rearing up to do even more of that now. And we've got these mystery, absolutely vile poop balls washing up on the shore of which, and like Australia, like it's a place that is beautiful. I would love to go visit in Sydney, but it was a place that also originally began as a prison island and is home to some of the most insane animal life that seems designed to kill you on planet Earth. So I can't act overly shocked now that the worst smelling balls on the planet have also found their way to the party to try and join the chorus of animals there that seem to want to kill you.
Yeah, I feel like I'm scratching Australia off my to visit list now. I don't need this. I don't need this in my life.
I mean, it just shows that when I go visit Australia, there's nothing I'm going to do to their plumbing that hasn't been done to the beaches already by these fatbergs showing up in the ocean. So I'm actually vaulting it to the top of the list for a place I've already really wanted to go and now feel even more comfortable and welcome. We hope that we have made you feel comfortable and welcome here at GoJo and Golic. If we have, download, subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe and go check out our YouTube page. Thanks so much. Enjoy Monday Night Football. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.